peace and lightheartedness following the more solemn of the ritual year. Ugewe is the festival.
So a couple of Nigerians took to the streets yesterday in Abuja to protest against the kind of democracy we're practicing in Nigeria, as hashtag Occupy INEC's protest was done in most part of Abuja. Hello and welcome. This is This Morning on ITV. I am Anuluwapo Stevens. We're in our Benin studio, and I also have Harry Iboje in the studio this morning. Good morning, Harry.
Good morning, Anu. You look gorgeous.
Thank you so much. Well, you don't look bad yourself.
Gracias.
Okay, so, and subsequently we'll be linking up with Lagos, where we have Patricia Gabriels on. But let's quickly talk about what went on yesterday in Abuja, as we saw leaders and members of the African Democratic Congress, the ADC, joined a large demonstration in Abuja yesterday protesting decisions of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, which they said undermined democracy and the party's internal leadership. Now, the protest tagged hashtag Occupy INEC drew former presidential candidates and prominent politicians, including ADC leader and former Senate President Senator David Mark and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar to Maitama roundabout. We also had the likes of Rotimi Amechi, Rauf Aribishola, Dino Melaye, and actually the list was endless. And of course, Kwankwaso was present. Peter Obi was also present on ground yesterday. Anyway, let's move over to Abuja and have a feel of what it went down yesterday in Abuja.
The standoff between the African Democratic Congress ADC and the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC intensified following a high-profile protest at the commission headquarters. The demonstration drew prominent party leaders, including National Chairman David Mark, National Secretary of Aregbesola, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, Rotimi Amechi, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, and began with the rendition of Nigeria's old national anthem. At the center of the protest is the demand for the resignation or removal of the INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amupiton, over alleged misconduct, abuse of office, and action that the party says undermine the credibility of the commission. Speaking, the national chairman of ADC, Senator David Mark, accuses the commission under Amupiton's leadership of abandoning neutrality, alleging bias in favor of a faction within the party. He faults the chairman for what he described as misinterpretation of court rulings, which he says undermines the judiciary and erodes public confidence in the electoral process. He warns that failure to address the party's demands could lead to legal action and intensify civil engagement, noting that the dispute poses a broader threat to Nigeria's multi-party democracy ahead of the 2027 elections.
We simply do not accept the INEC interpretation or the judgment from the Court of Appeal. The INEC interpretation has deprived us of our proper status, and that's what we petitioned INEC, that they should revise themselves and give the proper interpretation of the status quo ante bellum and not removing the chairman. It couldn't possibly be treating an individual as a faction. If ADC has no faction, as one ADC, and that interpretation doesn't rhyme with the reality on ground. Not insist, that's what we have brought a letter here to, that they should not insist. They should revert themselves, and you can see it from the public opinion.
The high-capacity buses, Homer buses, as well as Sharon cars and other vehicles that convey mammoth crowd to the Maitama district of the FCT housing INEC headquarters is for just one purpose, which is to call on the INEC as well as the president to steer clear from the leadership crisis in the ADC. From Abuja, Joseph Kadri, ITV News.
Well, thank you so much, Joseph Kadiri. Now, let's quickly link up with our Lagos studio where Patricia Gabriels is on. Good morning, Patricia. Welcome on board. Glad to have you join us today.
Good morning, Anu. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too. So tell me, what do you make out of what went down yesterday in Abuja with the hashtag Occupy INEC protest? Did you see it coming?
Well, we had rumors that they were going to occupy the INEC office. You know, rumors were, making rounds yesterday, but I didn't see it coming this large. It is actually very large, and then we hope the federal government listens, or the chairman of INEC listens to their cry, or whatever they want dealt with. We hope that it will be dealt with quickly so that there will be peace in the country.
So one of your major demands is the removal of INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amopita. Now, do you think that is even making any sense at this point? And do you think that is going to solve their internal dispute rocking the ADC?
No, I don't think so, because we're going to be looking at the ADC crisis this morning from Lagos studio. I mean, the third faction has emerged. So taking off or removing the INEC chairperson, I don't think that will solve the internal problem of ADC. ADC has to put themselves together and internal problems they have.
Absolutely, and I'm sure our interested viewers are looking forward to the conversation that will be coming in from your end this morning over the unending dispute we are now seeing in the ADC. Harry, so yesterday I listened to one of the interesting chieftain of the ADC, Dino Melaye. He was on ground yesterday at the protest. Okay. One of the funny part of it was when Rotimi Amechi came on board, and he said that this current administration, the president, the first thing he did was to change the national anthem. And he wondered how that was the major problem of what we're going through in Nigeria. So just on a lighter note, so yesterday Dino Melaye sang Arise, O Compatriot as the national anthem. And then a lot of Nigerians asked, how many national anthems do we have now? But in a general sense, another major thing to draw your attention to was when Dino Melaye said that all of the factions that we now have in the ADC have been sponsored by the current administration. And I'd love to add allegedly. What do you make out of it?
Okay, first off, the national anthem thing. It's really funny that after so many months, even counting on years, we're still struggling with trying to strike a balance between the old anthem and the new one. And it's really not peculiar to Dino Melaye. There are some persons that are still stuck on the old one. And it's really
when you say some persons, I doubt if you can even sing the new national anthem or the old new national anthem actually.
Well, I try.
You try.
Because I've spent the better part of my life, singing the old anthem.
Right.
And then boom, the new one was introduced. And I'm sure it's not just me or Dino Melaye. There are lots of Nigerians out there who are still struggling, especially those, for the kids, of course, they are taught in school, right? So it's easy for them to adapt to the new one. But for those of us who spent, the larger part of our lives singing the old anthem, trust me, it's a bit of a challenge. And then talking about the changes that the president has introduced ever since. Well, the problem is change is the constant in life, and one thing we can't do is shy away from it. But the reality is change has to be beneficial to the people. You can't just introduce something that will not benefit the people in the long run. So as far as I'm concerned, change is good, but it's only good when it's beneficial to the larger percentage of the population.
Okay, so do you see the ADC fielding candidate for the forthcoming election with what is going on now in their camp? Do you see them fielding any candidate
at all? Well, the reality is that, there's already a faction, or there are factions in the ADC.
3 factions.
Okay, and if something isn't done fast, it's going to tell on, their fate in the forthcoming election. So I think the earlier they put their house together, the better for them. Well, as for whether they can file a candidate, it's possible. if they are able to, settle their differences early enough and, come to a consensus and say, you know what, this is our candidate. But if this continues, let's not have a situation whereby we have 3 candidates, being fielded by the 3 factions of the ADC.
Okay, now let me move back to Patricia in Lagos. Really, at this point, I'm sure the question on every Nigerian mind right now is, what is the fate of opposition in Nigeria? It has become a recurrent conversation every single time. The issue as regards the one-party system, the kind of democracy we practice in Nigeria. Really, what is the fate? And also, yesterday, after the protest, we saw an interesting meeting where we had Seyi Makinde join members of the ADC, and then that also sparked another conversation as to whether or not he would be joining the ADC moving forward. So I would love to get your take on everything.
Anyway, he said it was a solidarity visit to the ADC. And then this is becoming scary because it just seems like we're heading off to party states. It looks like we're not going to opposition, any solid opposition party come 2027, because the 8 Nigerians are looking up, have not been able to put them together. Every day it's one problem or the other. We just heard now that there's a 3rd faction that had just emerged. So I don't know if they have enough to be able to put themselves together and become a very strong opposition party for APC. There's a problem. If it continues like this, then we're just going to see ourselves in a one-party state.
Well, we're looking forward to everything as it unfolds, because 2027 is already here. All of the stuff is booming and grooming, and Nigerians can only anticipate the outcome of everything moving forward. Now, we'll join you in a moment, Patricia. Thank you so much for your great insight. Well, back here in Edo State, Nigeria, our main attention will be looking at press freedom. Interestingly, during the course of this week, we saw what happened between the Minister of the FCT and a particular TV presenter, and that sparked a lot of reactions, online, offline, with a lot of persons, the NUJ, other broadcasting association reacting to it. Even Amnesty International took interest in this, and we're going to be tilting our attention to press freedom in Nigeria, progress or decline. How far really have we gone? And hopefully we'll have the National Secretary of the NUJ join us live from Abuja this morning, and also a veteran journalist who joins us live in the studio, Tony Abolo, to dissect all of this and more. And after that, we'll also turn our attention to World Health Day. We saw an interesting revelation from the federal government as it has raised concerns over health funding and sustainability as U.S. exit $1.9 billion deficit. All of this and more would shape our conversation this morning. But we'll quickly take a short break, and when we return, we'll move over to the couple of national dailies. Please stay with us.
ITV, certainly the best. ITV, certainly the best. ITV, certainly the best.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. If you're just joining, you're on to This Morning on ITV. Now we'll quickly look at a couple of national dailies this morning. We have the Daily Trust newspaper, Vanguard newspaper, the Punch newspaper, and also Daily Sun. So we can start with the Daily Trust newspaper, and of course the big headline this morning is 2027 ADC PDP close ranks. 2027 ADC PDP close ranks. Interestingly, on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, we have pictures from the protest that went down yesterday in Abuja, and I see the like of Peter Obi, David Mark, Waruf Regbesola, Kwankwaso is also here, Atiku Abubakar, and interestingly, other protesters on ground yesterday. Faldo Garo touted for Kanu deputy governorship on page 6. Tanzania president orders officials to travel by bus amid fuel shortages on page 22. Bauchi APC divided over Bala Mohammed's defection bid on page 10. Tinubu absent as Akpabio commissions Lagos project on page 23. Well, other interesting headlines this morning on the Daily Trust newspaper. Nigeria's inflation remains high despite rebasing. Who was speaking? The World Bank on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Trust TV wins Best Documentary Award, still on page 5. Nigeria not collapsing, federal government replies CSOs, and that's still on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Well, that's all the Daily Trust newspaper have in stock for us this morning. We turn our attention now over to the Punch newspaper. So the Punch newspaper is up next. Okay, let's take the Punch newspaper. And of course, the Punch newspaper is leading with the major headline, Harry.
All right, let's focus on the Punch newspaper now. And the major headline here is saying, Wike-backed PDP fumes over Makinde ADC alliance plans. Wike-backed PDP fumes over Makinde ADC alliance plans. And that will be found on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And the writer to that says, Oyo Governor Atiku Obi Kwankwaso Amechi Mark hold high-stakes meeting, null new platform. Oyo Governor Atiku Obi Kwankwaso Amechi Mark hold high-stakes meeting, null new platform. And that's still on the Punch newspaper. And of course, above the masthead, Northeast logs nearly 2,000 explosions in 7 years. Northeast logs nearly 2,000 explosions in 7 years, and that's according to a report, and that can be found on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. Next to that is World Bank flags fiscal risk in Nigeria's 4 trillion naira power bond, and that can be found on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. World Bank flags fiscal risk in Nigeria's 4 trillion naira power bond, and that will be found on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. And then next to that particular headline says 2027 INEC registers 3.4 million new voters. 2027 INEC registers 3.4 million new voters. That's quite an interesting one, and can be found on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. And right below that, Senate President, governors unveil Lagos mega projects. Senate President, governors unveil Lagos mega projects, and that is on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. And then still on the Punch newspaper, youths rally Jonathan for 2027 presidential bid. Really interesting. And that's on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. And then next to that says 500 level student dies during football match. And that's on a rather tragic note. And that's on page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. And last but not least on the Punch newspaper this morning, Bauchi APC split over governor's defection move. Bauchi APC split over governor's defection move, and that's on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. And that's all we've got on the Punch newspaper this morning. Anu, back to you.
The Daily Sun newspaper is leading with the major headline that says ADC Mark Atiku Obi orders protest at INEC. Subwriter says insist on Amo Piton's sack. Now that's on page 6. Plateau relaxes curfew in Jos, now docks to dawn on page 27. Police raid Enugu criminal hideout, arrest suspects, destroy drug bunks. On page 4. Well, still on page 4 of the Daily Sun this morning, terrorism, 4 convicts bag life imprisonment. Dangote refutes fuel price hike as U.S.-Iran war enters ceasefire on page 25. I don't know who's behind the spread of fake news, but I don't think that's what Nigerians want to hear at this point in time. Away from that, 2027 PDP ADC leaders meet, may forge common front on page 6. And finally, on the Daily Sun today, World Bank, Nigeria orders under pressure as debt inflation threaten growth. Harry.
All right, next on our radar is the Vanguard newspaper. And the screamer on the Vanguard newspaper this morning says, ADC lists 6-point demands at INEC protest. ADC lists 6-point demands at INEC protests. Now, whether these demands are realistic or not is an issue for another day. Okay, right, still under the Vanguard newspaper, Atiku Obi, Kwankwaso, others lead protests in Abuja. Don't kill democracy. Obi Amechi reject one-party rule. Don't kill democracy. Obi Amechi reject one-party rule. No cause for alarm over ADC crisis. David Mark assures. Well, is that the reality? Well, your guess is as good as mine. PDP ADC leaders hold closed-door talks. PDP ADC leaders hold closed-door talks. And still on that particular one, INEC populated by card-carrying members of APC. INEC populated by card-carrying members of APC, and that's credited to Senator Marafa. And then right above the masthead, ADC top shots lead protest at INEC headquarters. I think that's pretty much what's leading, the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Okay, finally, the Guardian newspaper. Let's see if we have a different headline on the Guardian this morning. It says, the opposition explores options as ADC, PDP question INEC's neutrality on page 6. NCAA warns of flight delays, cancellations during rainy season on page 5. World Bank, multi-dimensional poverty threatening Nigeria's economic potential on page 6. And finally, on the Guardian this morning, 2027, don't give part to APC by boycotting polls. Adebayo urges Nigerians. And you get full details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Well, that's all we have this morning on Interesting Newspaper Review. Do well to pick up any of the copies and stay abreast with what is going on in Nigeria and also in the world. Now we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll move over to the first leg of the conversation. Please don't go anywhere.
ITV, certainly the best.
Benin Cultural Dance, a unique dance and quality dance steps of the Benin people. This dance is a vibrant mix of traditions, arts and beliefs, deeply rooted in the country's diverse ethnic groups and their rich history. The dance has artistic expressions depicting the people's history. Benin people have been famous for bronze and brass work, some of which is said to date back from the 13th century, especially ivory and wood carving. In Benin, the people dance to show respect, honor, dignity, which they honor. They dance to show royalty, as naids are seen in their numbers around their body depicting the symbol of kingship.
Thank you very much for joining us on the program, Healthy Living. What is the kidney?
The kidney is an excretory organ in the body, which is for metabolism.
Tuberculosis affects many organs in the body, but the common ones it usually affects is the lungs.
Epilepsy is a neurological problem.
Okay.
It is an injury in the brain, which causes someone to begin to convulse, to go into fits.
It is curable, but the cure is a long-term thing.
If you eat well and avoid those risk factors that will make your immunity to be down, then the risk of contracting tuberculosis will be reduced.
If you're healthy, then you're wealthy.
Onwa is rich in culture and tradition.
Welcome back. So press freedom is widely regarded as a cornerstone of any democratic society, enabling citizens to stay informed, hold leaders accountable, and participate meaningfully in governance. Now, in Nigeria, a country with a vibrant media landscape and a long history of journalistic activism, the question of whether press freedom is improving or deteriorating remains both complex and contested. Now, while constitutional provisions guarantee freedom of expression and of the press, journalists and media organizations continue to face a mix of opportunities and challenges shaped by political, legal and technological development. So in recent years, Nigeria has witnessed significant growth in digital media and independent journalism, expanding the space for diverse voices and public discourse. However, concerns persist over issues such as harassment of journalists, restrictive regulations, misinformation, and the influence of political and economic interest on media operations. Now, these contrasting realities raise an important question. Is Nigeria making meaningful progress in protecting press freedom? Or is the space for free expression gradually shrinking? My guest, Tony Abolo, joins live in the studio this morning. A veteran journalist joins live here in the studio. Good morning and welcome.
Hello. Hello.
Good morning,
Thanks
sir.
for inviting me.
Good to have you join us.
Thanks.
Well, I feel like the first question should be, how free is the press in Nigeria?
How free? It's on paper.
On paper? Okay.
That's where you are going to find that freedom. The real freedom is just not there. You were in your introductory remarks talking about shrinking space. The space, did it ever expand? That's the question. Because I'd like to look at these things from both historical perspective and look at it even culturally, and in a dimension that is sociological. Now, let me go through this. In history, without the media, there may not have been independence, which meant that the freedom we talk about, democracy, whatever language, although we are not democratic in Nigeria, and don't waste your time talking about that, is that, then there was an attempt to free us from the Europeans. So when you had people like Awolowo, Ernest Ikoli, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Davis, all Ebenezer Williams, all these are old names that were in the old media. And there was an attempt to ginger the people, alighting from the Second World War, in which Nigerians had traveled to other parts of the world and saw what the world looked like. And then, incidentally, the West African Pilot was the paper pioneered by Nnamdi Azikiwe. And the motto for the West African Pilot was, show the light and the people will see the way. And so there was this attempt to show the light and enlighten the people about their freedom, their sense of dignity, and the need to have colonial rule end. And so there was this push. Now, after that push, and we succeeded, not too long after that came the military. And when the military came, it became a battle. Because the military have their own ethos about what they think governance should be. And when you talk about restricting space, the military restricts space. And we have not left militarism in our language and behavior and culture and in our politics. And that is what is affecting everything that you're seeing today. And so when the media battle, even people like who today is there serving Tinubu, Bayo Onanuga, when he was printing the news magazine, and other names you can talk about, Delegiwa and everybody else, everybody fought. Remember Decree 4 of Buhari? There was this attempt to fight the military. And so the media fought the military. And that created another space. And so the military was able to move away. And like I tell media students, we are in a fresh, we're in a fresh battle because we've forgotten that having enthroned the civilians, we think we've won the battle. This is even worse because we are now dealing, and that's why I told you about the culture and the sociology. You're dealing with the behavior of call it the African big man. And I would use words that, at least through research work and through my own experience growing up in this country, I find that the Nigerian big man is uncouth in terms of use of language, very crude, and he's very narcissistic. And worse than this, all of this, he's a psychopath. And until we cure, because that's where the problem of freedom is. You are dealing with very difficult human beings. Those who think, in fact, sometimes they imagine that before God, they exist. And I wish they were humble to know that power is transient, and that they are only supposed to do certain things within the time frame they are supposed to be there.
Absolutely.
And so consequently, we now find that whereas it has been written in section 22 of the Constitution about the freedom of the press, in which we ought to hold the leaders accountable, and we should not forget this line: the people have a right to know. And so in pursuit of the people's right to know, we're battling with these kind of characters, the Nigerian big man. And so that is what really, when you're talking about shrinking of space, that's why I say maybe the space is even disappeared.
Okay, so I love the part where you said power is transient, and I love the scenario that you've painted over the Nigerian big man. Now for context, let's bring it down to context. So Nigerians saw what happened between the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, and a TV presenter, Shinwo. And that sparked a lot of reactions online. How did they happen? So interestingly, he was having a show, and he talked about the issue of the one-party system in Nigeria and what he thinks about it. Now, in a press briefing, interestingly, with all the journalists seated there, the minister said when he was watching that interview, he felt like if he had the opportunity of just shooting him right there from the TV, if that could work. And, you know, so on the other hand, Shinwo reacted to it and said, you know what, I am not afraid. And it sparked a lot of reactions. Even the NUJ actually demanded an apology from Wike, but that we have not heard at this point. So to react to everything that came on board, the minister said it was a figure of speech and Nigerians took it out of proportion. So I'm beginning to wonder what kind of figure of speech that really is.
It's because the Nigerian big man doesn't think before he acts. Because if he was thinking, doesn't know what it is to be a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, doesn't know how to act as the minister of the FCT, and doesn't know the mandate, and he was acting on behalf of the president. He is not the president. You see the way he carries on. I think he thinks he's either a deputy president or is a president surrogate. Otherwise, if he knows that he's a minister, he ought to be watching his language. True. And remember, I use the word that they are uncouth. They use foul language. And to them, who are you? A journalist? How much do you make? How much do you make? Whereas they are inside the house stealing the money all day long. And so they think we don't make money. And therefore, they who are the ones who are packing the money are big men. And therefore, they can talk to anybody. No, there ought to be decency. Even the human conduct, there is a humanity in which you respect the other person. That you will find in other climes. In Nigeria, the other person doesn't seem to matter. Whereas it behooves a minister to think that out of a sense of responsibility, talking to Akimbaloye, who has built up his reputation on politics today, and in any case, he was in his own rights to say what he said. And remember, because these arguments have been reading them online, and we have called it the Broadcasters Guild of Nigeria, where I belong, and we've been throwing lots of things. And I tell you frankly, as far as I'm concerned, as an interviewer, you do have an opinion. You could say certain things. We're not saying be rude, no, but just be courteous and elicit information. And so when you were doing that, and you said, because everybody in Nigeria knows that there's been this silent drive for a one-party state, even if both the president and his people deny it, that is not a fact. But we know it as a fact, because by the time they came on this ADC, we now knew that the cake, or rather the cookies, have crumbled. And so we needed to really, really say it. And out of the anxiety, because I also tell people that the journalist is like the lawyer. The lawyer is within a confine of a courtroom. We are in the court of public opinion.
All right.
And that is a wider scope, wider dimension. And we deal with the public, the massive public. Whether you are on top or you are the president or you are the farmer the media does and touches everybody. And therefore, when we represent them, we make certain comments that are supposed to provide enlightenment.
All right, sir. That was a very brilliant response to that question. Now, a recent study actually shows that Nigeria has dropped 10 places, on the global ranking of freedom of the press. And this is actually quite worrisome, and I think it's something that should bother the average Nigerian out there. Now, do you think these studies exaggerated, or it's the reflection of reality?
No, I wouldn't say it's exaggerated. Just you merely hope that statistical data is as accurate as can be. How do you know we're not even in the 20th position? So let's just even take dropping to the 10th position. And now comes the other side of it, which is that even if we may blame, like I've been talking about, the Nigerian big man, what is the chairman of the Nigerian Union of Journalists supposed to do? Who is supposed to protect
the image?
Not just the image, protect us in the course of, or as they say, in the line of duty.
Duties, okay.
So I want to think that the chairman or the president, whatever he calls himself, ought to be the one in the forefront. But you see, we again have to be very careful. This is where one of those rules we learned as young journalists, and I'm looking at 40, 50, 60 years ago. 60, 70 years ago, when we're growing up in the media, one of the things you are taught, and even then is that it's a global practice, don't ever get close to politicians.
Right.
It's a simple rule, but we think it doesn't matter.
Well, is it realistic, though?
It is realistic. What we're saying, yes, you will deal with the politician, but at an arm's length.
Okay.
But when you cross over, begin to dine with them, begin to chop them money, this is where the problem comes. So if you stay your distance and stay professional, do what you should do, then you don't get anybody. Because all this kind of insult they bandy, they just think, I throw money at them and then they will. No, it is, you must respect yourself professionally. Stay your distance. So if we stay our distance and then the chairman protects these people, then we'll be able to shout, refer to the constitution, and then use the courts, if need be, to institute our freedom,
right, and
to protect the profession itself and practitioners.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Tony Abelo. Interestingly, you talked about the body, NUJ, and we have the National Secretary join us live this morning from Abuja, Achike Chud. Thank you so much for joining. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me.
Okay, so you've been listening to the conversation, but I would really love to get your stance as to what exactly did happen and how far the body NUJ has gone in all of this. Because I did hear that NUJ joined other broadcasting organizations to demand an apology from the Minister of the FCT. But aside that, is that really enough for future cases?
Yes, let me join the degree. I share the degree of outrage by your guest in the studio. I think it's expressing it adequately. Yes, it did issue a release. We had to. It was scathing. It was condemnatory of the minister's utterance, which we felt was absolutely unbecoming. And we know that some of the politicians. We know that some of the politicians, Wike generally is known for this kind of rhetorics, and he's been doing it for quite some time. Now, if he does it within the political terrain, it's a completely different thing. We have been seeing it, we've been hearing it, even though it has been hitting up the polity, but we have tended to overlook it. But not when you encroach upon a terrain that is guaranteed by the Nigerian Constitution. Then it becomes problematic. So obviously he encroached in a very egregious manner, making threats. Because the threat by the minister, I tell people that they should look beyond Seun Okinbaloye. It was a threat against the media itself. And so it was an existential issue for the media. And I'm happy that the media reacted the way that she did with everything at its disposal. Whether that is enough is another thing altogether. We did demand that the minister must immediately apologize. Whether he's going to do that is another thing. But we have weapons. It's not just the NUJ itself, because you have the NUJ, the Guild of Editors, you have other media-related organizations, as well as civil society organizations in the country. Because what has happened is a threat to the civil space in Nigeria. It's a threat to the democratization process in this country. It's an insult on the Nigerian Constitution that adequately provides for the profession of journalism as a safeguard, as a check on the excesses of the politicians. So if you do away with the media, or if you harass the media, the way maybe perhaps that kind of statement suggested, it means that you have actually become a threat to the to democracy that we are practicing in this country. And of course, this democracy is tenuous at this particular point in time. A lot of people are beginning to question whether we actually have a democracy. And it is statements like this from the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory that give credence to that thinking that our democracy is becoming threatened by the day.
Okay, we really need to take a short break, but when we return, we'll move over to another part of the conversation. Please stay with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. If just joining, you are into This Morning on ITV, and we have been looking at the state of press freedom in Nigeria. How far have we gone? Is it improving or declining? And I still have my guest seated with us here in the studio, veteran broadcaster Tony Abolo, right here in the studio, and also joining virtually from Abuja is the National Secretary of NUJ, Achike Chu. Thank you so much for staying. Now let me move back to Mr. Achike, or Comrade Achike. Now, in your own opinion, really, what have you observed so far? Because this is not the first time we're hearing cases and seeing cases of intimidation and harassment, being done to journalists. Okay, so being done to journalists, and in cases it has even gone as bad as them losing their lives, and we see it happen over time. What really is the issue here? How safe is the fourth estate of the realm?
Safe, up to some extent. Up to some extent. You see, because it has driven us into self-censorship, whereas it ought not to be. The basic thing about the media is about T-R-U-T-H, truth. And who gets scared of truth? It is they in power. It is they in politics that get scared of truth. Because if what they do in the closets is made manifest to the public, they get very discomforted. So because of that, they are not going to be able to stand rigor of the inquisitiveness of the media. And way back in the 17th century, Montesquieu, the French philosopher, had also made this comment that publicity is the antidote to tyranny and corruption. And the more you give publicity, the more the politicians roll back. But sadly, in this case in Nigeria, if you turn the glare lights on what they do, first, they will intimidate you. They use all sorts of state security apparatuses to come and harass you. And that's what they love to do. They want everybody beaten onto the line. And that is not good. So because of that, I don't think we're enjoying the freedom that we ought to get. And the people forget. And that's why I'm glad that Achike made a mention of the fact that in the case of Akim Boloye, civil society joined in the cry.
Right.
Because you see, you need, and what's it called? This not even Showore, the constitutional lawyer Olisa Agbakoba. Okay. They talk about, we talk about the fourth estate of the realm. He says, no, the first, second, third, fourth. Yes, he talks about the fifth estate of the realm. And the fifth estate of the realm is the civil society. And when we're looking at civil society, we're not looking at a little group making up their meetings and club and offices. No, the civil society. Can't you see what happens abroad? When anything happens and it concerns the people, everybody pours on the streets. Like the kind of thing they did in Abuja yesterday. Yeah. That is what we mean by civil society. So you need the civil society to come and back the media and say, look, we demand that the right things be done. And it's because we are not holding them, even as a people, accountable and pushing them to behave. That's the reason why they go away with blue murder. And it's time the people came out from their trenches, stop being afraid, because how many are they? If you count how many people, how many governors, how many presidents, how many senators, how many this, compared to 230 million they say we are, then we are intimidated by who? What happened in Bangladesh? What happened in Nepal? What happened in Zimbabwe? What happened in Egypt? You must go and look. Because if the people came out, the political class will, how do you say it in pidgin? They go maintain. Because we are not coming out. So they just go away and do whatever they like. They pass laws the way they like. They don't care whether we interpret it wrongly or we see it in bad light or the people are affected. No. It is time the people back the media, because the media has a function.
Right.
And we're serving the people. Okay. And unless the people saw the importance and the benefits of the media, and that's why one of the things we talk and teach is media and development. So until the people see them, so that the media is an imperative and a concomitant to development, the people may not come out and begin to back us.
All right, sir. I'm talking you mentioning the people and the need to come out and defend the media. The first thing that came to my mind was the NSAS protest and how it all panned out. Don't you think the elites already have it all figured out and they have it all planned out, and they already have some sort of rebound planned out for any attempt by the people, to hit the streets to defend the media? Don't you think so?
Oh, no, I don't know what it's a matter of thinking. Put it this way. I look at the military doctrine and the police doctrine. You see, we have come from the colonial times. The rules and regulations in the book have not changed. Until you change it, that the security, go to the Constitution, the welfare and security of the people is the primary function of the government. If they know that, they will not come and be intimidating and harassing us. But you see, when they know that that is of primary importance, they will not try what they are trying. In the books, they always talk about, commander-in-chief. But when people in developed climes or in other global north and some other democracies, when we talk about commander-in-chief, it is the equivalent of the flag, the nation. That's what you come out to defend. And the man who was sworn in to be the commander-in-chief is defending the sovereignty of the nation. But what happens? It is about self. The army is about defending the man. The police about the man. They have not changed it in the books that they ought to look at the people. Until you change that in the books. And so they go and change the doctrine by which they are training their people. DSS thinks you protect the government. Right. Security of government. It is security of the people. Police ought to police the people. The military ought to defend the sovereignty of the people, not of one person. Because that's what they are doing.
Okay, let's move back to Comrade Achike, live in Abuja. I would love to get the current stance, really, or the current situation as regards the case between the FCT minister and Shehu. How far has the body gone? Aside just demanding for apologies, what other measures has been put in place to ensure that we do not have a repetition of what went down over the past week? So we'll try to regain connectivity back with Achike if we can. Now, let me direct that question back to you, Mr. Tony.
Well, what I would say is that the NUJ and BON, the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, and associate bodies ought to make a formal report to the police and formal report to the DSS, and don't just take it lying down. Because you see, if we don't react that way, Wike, who is a different ball game when it comes to behavior, he will think that he can go ahead. What made him pipe down? When he saw the backlash, he now began to say, "Oh, we misunderstood him. He was misquoted. Oh, we don't."
It was a figure of speech.
Figure of speech. Yes, I love that. So are you saying all Nigerians are dumb? All Nigerians are illiterate? All Nigerians can't understand English? When you say, "Oh, if I had a gun, I would just go there and shoot him." When you were saying that, don't you? Where were you? Were you having some tiff before you said it?
Isn't there supposed to be some legal implication to that?
That's what I'm saying. That's why you ought to report formally to the police, report to the DSS, and don't take it just lying low. When he knows that the bodies that are responsible act that way, then when he goes the next time, sitting on this is emperor's chair and behaving as if he's bigger than the head of state, then he will now begin to know that, oh, Nigerians matter and the media matters. And that is what the message ought to be.
All right, I would like to, as we begin to, as we approach the 2027 election, don't you think inflammatory statements like this could heat up the polity and make, and give room for perhaps violence during the election?
Yeah. Remember that through the years, we worried about hate speech. We worried about rhetorics that are inflammatory. And of course, that's the reason why the guideline that the NBC gives to the broadcasting stations when it comes to taking adverts and taking messages and reporting reporting events, political rallies and so on. Those things are expletives. You delete them. You don't put them on air. And so, yes, these things happen. And it grieves me that we don't get the best of ourselves inside politics. That's something you see, it's the kind of people. And I've never forgotten that way back in Babangida days when they were trying to do this, their SDP and NRC. One of those things we're trying to look at. And he said it in the inauguration speeches, that look, the peopling of the political parties matter to how the political parties grow. And we ought to be more mindful. If you get more decent people going into politics, and you're all young fellows, and I'll tell you this, I mean, my experience working at the BBC, our secretary was a member of one of the political parties in the UK. So, but we think that politics is meant for, I don't know what we imagine it to be for some kind of people. There are no kind of people. They are human beings like you and I. And therefore, we, even in the media, ought to take interest, not just to go there to be a publicity secretary. No, we're not saying that. We're saying be an activist in politics. We all as a people don't create room for just charlatans, shenanigans to swell into our political class. We all, decent ones, everyone, the good, the bad, and the ugly, let's all go in and then make a difference. And if we do that, you discover that the language will change. Decency will come into it. And those who rise in the ranks of politics will become some of the finest. Some of the finest. I mean, we know that America descended with Trump. Right. But then, that wasn't the expectation that America would come to this. But look at Britain, look at France, look at Germany, look at how even Putin, with all his even war behavior, have you seen him misstep in terms of his speech? Even Xi Jinping of China, did you see him missing? So you want the kind of people who go into leadership to be decent people who use decent language and respect the people and talk to us in a more refined and respectful manner.
Okay, let me see if we still have Comrade Achike live with us virtually, because we'd really love to get the current stance of things as regards what went on with NUJ. If any measures has also been put in place to ensure that we do not have a current situation, you know, come on board, especially as we move over to the 2027 general election. Should journalists and the media in particular be worried for movement? Comrade Achike, please. Okay, so I think I have to still direct that question back to you since we're having a bit of glitch. Right, please.
Don't use that word again. glitch.
It's now become a national.
I don't know. That was when they were interviewing Bishop Kuka. He said the last time we had glitch, he doesn't know what we're going to hear next in 2027. Right. Well, we are hoping that those who have been, and even Kuka with Abubakar, former General Abubakar, who used to do the mediation with politics, at least especially mediating inside elections, will come in again and talk to the people. Like I said, the problem again is the behavior of the big man. Then secondly, you have to look at the painful fact that our politics by itself, it's not a church affair. It's not shaking of the arm.
So you agree that it's a dirty game according to
No, it's not a word dirty. Okay. It's aggressive. Getting power. Maybe Tinubu was right when he said, get up, snatch it, and run with it. That exactly is a language of politics. Right. It is as fierce and as aggressive as possible because nobody holds power and wants to release it. True. It is merely human. And sometimes it's frightening, but then that is the part of it. But we are hoping that mediation must come from certain institutions who are concerned about interventions. Does it come from the church, which seems to have disappeared, even in terms of moderation in our political behavior? Do we get it from the academia, so that they now also speak? Because never mind, we're talking about Ibadan when we started this before we got on air. In those days, Professor Kenedike, who was the vice chancellor of the University of Ibadan, in those days, when a vice chancellor speaks, the country trembles. The politicians behave. So, but that is lost. And part of it, like I was reading a recent article, going and be collecting money and being paid for election, whatever it is, you know, so they mess themselves. But we hope that they can get themselves back and let the academia be a moderation and be a force for a good influence. So the church, the academia, and traditional rulers. Because I think they have lost everybody seems to have lost their way. And this is quite important. We have all lost our way. I mean, good behavior is no longer the thing. Stevens, when you as a Yoruba person, you talk about Omoluabi, that is a language. When you say, oh, a Bini person is a proud person, there is a meaning to that word. It's not a pride in terms of human pride, but good, decent behavior. So when you now begin to have influences within our political space, and like I told you, you all should be politicians yourselves, and so get involved. Then you discover that you will now have people who can moderate, because in our politics there's no moderation, and that's why it gets violent. Occasionally you hear somebody was carrying gun, like you heard in Benin. Some you hear they went to destroy some rally. They went to, no. It's about contention. Okay. Contention of ideas, and hoping that by presenting yourself to the people may choose you.
Right.
So if we now begin to bring decent behavior into our political space, then I'm sure that 2027 may not be as ominous and perhaps violent, which it can be. And sadly, the way it has been synchronized and been gravitating since 2023, no, in fact, it's a zero-sum game. There's no such.
Okay. So as we tend to coast home the conversation, let's talk about the rise of the digital media and social media. How has it affected press freedom in Nigeria? Because that seems to be another angle that has not really been regulated well enough.
I don't know about regulation. I put it to you this way. I'm speaking like a lawyer. Truth of the matter is that there is a way we're not looking at the digital media in the right perspective. And I'll put it again historically. When newsprint came out for a start, the world was trembling. It's like, people were burning press houses. It's like enemies were approaching, and people attacked initial press. Then when broadcasting started, it was like, what was coming on? Television came, same fright. Why I'm putting this history is that so you know that something new always creates chaos within human anticipation and behavior. And remember that the mediation of the social media has changed how we live, how we relate, how we talk to one another, and using it in the media space, which is central to human communication. And that's why you call it social media. It's about social communication. So when people begin to see that it has come in, we're grappling with a new sense of technology. And where people ought to realize it's a new technology that is intervening in our social communication, you find that when America itself, which ought to look so advanced, had to invite Mark Zuckerberg to come to Congress to testify. So it means that even they themselves get worried. And of course, I'm sure you've heard plenty times when you heard about the influence of social media and people committing suicide, cyberbullying, and all of that. So those are the new technologies we're dealing with. Now, it is not about regulation, but understanding how does it come into our day-to-day communication? How does it influence what people popularly call fake news? And there's going to be a lot of fake news, and a lot of it keeps happening. And there's even now, not only do we talk about fake news, but deep fake news. And the deep fake is what the AI has introduced into digital space and digital communication and the digital technology of communication. So because of this, we like to believe that we should understand. You see, because that's one thing that is very missing in Nigeria. We are still very primitive as a people. We ought to be more intellectual. We ought to ask ourselves questions, deeper questions. What is this? Remember that when it comes to technology and the media, we are far behind. And we ought to even try and grapple with the little that we have and try and see what we make of it. So when we now begin to understand, we now know whether or not it's going to be a tremendous impact. And like I was talking about human mediation, there will be the digital mediation, which ought to be guided, not regulated, guided, so that it can create positive influences in how we play our politics, in how we fight with one another, and how we throw the contending ideas, and hoping that the contending ideas the better ideas will flower and then direct our future.
Right, now finally, what is your outlook for the future of journalism in Nigeria?
I'm not only a participant, but I teach it and I interact with it. Well, like all things, it's not being pessimistic. I like to believe that at some point, people will now begin to think professional. what is the media supposed to do? Because the media is a social institution. It's just one of those many institutions, economic, political, and all that. And like I always like to talk about the theory that Prince Tony Momoh, who was now late former Minister for Information, talks about the quadrangle of power. You know, usually the language is we are the fourth estate of the realm. And when you think of fourth estate of the realm, you think of one, executive, legislature, judiciary, then the media. No, that's not the perspective. It's not right. You ought to think of it like a quadrangle. If you draw a quadrangle, you draw the executive on one side, you draw the judiciary on one side, draw the legislature, and draw us into the. So, in terms of social relations and power, we are part and parcel of the social power relations in any politics.
Not in the sense of
not in the sense of gradation of being below anybody. Okay. So when we now begin to look at ourselves as people who share power, and like I sometimes say to students, it's not a matter of, you know, they talk about the legislature being the oversighters. We in the media are oversighters of the oversights. We look even into the executive, look into the legislature, look into the judiciary, and then look into ourselves, and then look at society in itself. So when we do that, you discover that we will now understand that we have a social responsibility. I mean, you can go back even, and there is of course a major study what we call social responsibility theory of the press. We ought to look at ourselves as responsible for what happens to the society. And maybe on a last note, I'll put it to you this way. When we're thinking of 2027, do we leave it to the politicians? And like people tell you, don't leave politics to politicians. They mess up the place. The media ought to be more responsible, show leadership, and give direction. And because we're not giving direction, that's why the politicians think they should run with it. Nobody's running with anything. We ought, and that's why in the media we talk about agenda setting. What is the agenda we are setting for this nation? Where should Nigeria be? And we also talk about developing a future tense. What do Nigerians know where this country should be in 2030? All this business of somebody gets up, he's going to take over power in 2027, 2031, 20 this. Look, we, the media, ought to set the agenda. Right. If we do and realize that we have a major role to play, then the future will take care of itself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. The future indeed will take care of itself. And I love the part where you highlighted the agenda setting. That is why we are shaping and having this, you know, conversation done right here on ITV to ensure that we do not have future occurrences like this happen in the media space and in the political season as we gear up towards the 2027 general election. So I have been talking to a veteran journalist, Tony Abelo, right here in the studio. And at some point, we also had the national chairman of NUJ live in Abuja at Chike to join us virtually. But really must thank you so much for coming on board.
Merci.
Hopefully we have you again another time. Right. Okay. So we get to leave the conversation here this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. We'll quickly take a short break. And when we return, we'll move over to Abuja for more on this.
The land of Owa is inhabited by the people with common ancestry, language, religion, economic and socio-political ties. However, irrespective of their subtitle differences in language and culture, they share common traditions. The people are known for their hospitality, Onwan traced their origin to Benin Kingdom as a resort for a man to find a comfortable place for living. The name Onwan was derived from the largest and longest river in the area, which is known as Onwian or Onwan. It means one who makes merry in affluence.
Some days, there comes the Ugemobo Festival, which the Oba celebrates outside the palace gate. A pavilion is built of red cloth where rites are performed to drive away all evil spirits still unsatisfied by the year's sacrifices. The Ugemobo Festival is to commemorate an event in Benin history which dates back to 1504 AD.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us. You're on to This Morning on ITV, and we turn our attention over to a major conversation that has been on the front burner for as long as Nigerians can remember, since the polity began towards the 2027 general election. I'm talking about the issue of the one-party state system, where an alleged one-party state. So right now, we're going to be extraying lamentation of the opposition. And doing justice to this, I have my guest joins virtually this morning from Abuja. I have Comrade Mark Adebayo. He is the national spokesperson, Coalition of United Political Parties. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, viewers. Good morning.
Good morning. Now tell us, what have you been observing so far as regards to the issue and the allegations of the one-party system in the country? Because the ruling party, the APC, has debunked and said they do not have any intention of making Nigeria a one-party state.
What do you expect the APC to say? Well, I don't speak for the APC. I speak for the opposition coalition of United Political Parties, CUPP. The situation, you used one word to qualify the activities of opposition just now. You said the lamentation of the opposition. And it's quite regrettable that we have reduced our activism, our opposition activism to lamentation. They said, as we say in civil society, organize, don't agonize. If you look the trajectory of the political templates in the country today, it is very easy for you to conclude that, oh, maybe we are, tending towards a one-party state. That is a popular saying now. We are going towards a one-party state. But I think we in the opposition, it's time for us to audit our capacity. It's time to audit our strategy. Are we getting it right? Supposed to start long ago before now. That we have just started now, which for me is so painful. It's so painful. There are many things. There are many proposals that have been submitted. Let us do this. Let us do that. You see, there is nobody in the political space today who does not understand the kind of thing that will happen with the APC in power. For over 10 years now, not one single, 74 political parties were deregistered in 2020. 74 political parties were ceremoniously deregistered since more than 10 years ago. Not one was registered throughout the 8 years of late President Buhari. Now, only two were recently, registered by INEC, albeit reluctantly. Now, I want to believe that we already knew what the government is capable of doing, what the APC is capable of doing. But what were we doing? We were snoring, we were sleeping. We didn't wake up on time. Now, the time that we are waking up to smell the coffee is almost too late. Because you cannot expect the party in power to come and organize opposition for you. You have to organize by yourselves. And I think we should learn a quick lesson in this situation. That is why, you see, every time you have a strategic meeting, it does seem to me that people forget quickly about what is. For over 3 years now, there have been a comprehensive template of how to engage towards 2027 election, immediately in the aftermath of the 2023 election. You don't wait until election is tomorrow before you begin to mobilize, before you begin to plan, before you begin to lament according to your word, and begin to shout this and that. You do not expect the APC to come and organize opposition for you. So we must own our own blame. We must own our own errors where we have not gotten it right. When the APC, this same APC, was in the opposition. They did not give Jonathan a one day breathing space, one moment breathing space. They were always coming with one propaganda, one attack, one thing or the other. But now the opposition has reduced itself to reactive opportunism. We wait for things to happen before we begin. What happens to scenario mapping and action? You need to be able to sit down, predict your opponent, map the scenario, and have a ready-made response to that. Before the Electoral Act, the recent Electoral Act was passed, there have been information, there have been rumors, there have been things. We already knew the content of the Electoral Act. Nobody did anything about it until it was too late, and the thing was rushed and passed into law. So you cannot expect. So we can't just put all the blames on the APC. That's my point. We must also audit ourselves, audit our capacity, audit our strategy, audit our preparations. Otherwise, if this country should degenerate into a one-party state, the opposition too has a blame. It's a collective responsibility.
Right. So I love the part where you said we need to also checkmate ourselves as opposition party, because that has been one of the excuses from the ruling party. I remember a chieftain of the APC, Felix Morka, said that why is the opposition party blaming the leadership of the APC for their faults? Is it a case of opposition parties in Nigeria not being able to put their house in order or put their houses in order? Because as it stands, it seems all of the opposition parties have had their own fair share of internal democracy issues, from Labour Party to PDP, and now we're seeing what is going on in the ADC. What really is the problem? Is it a case also of interference from the federal government, allegedly?
Well, it may be. Of course, I think you can see some modicum of external interferences in some of these conflicts, some of these conflicts in all these political parties. Especially, you see the ADC. For the ADC, I think a lot was taken for granted. I want to say that it's a combination of external and internal issues that is creating the crisis you are witnessing today in the ADC. It's a combination of the two. But what I'm saying is that the coalition will have been able to prevent all these things from happening by being proactive in all their plannings and all the things that have been going on. It's quite unfortunate. You cannot, in as much as one may not have concrete facts about the interference of the federal government, it can be inferred from some of the things we have been seeing. It can be inferred. But then the issue is that nobody in a race or in a football match gives his opponent the opportunity to score against it. What you do is that you take advantage of your opponent's weaknesses to be able to score. So that is what has been happening. I think aside from the conflict, there's also internal contradictions. There are internal contradictions within the opposition political parties, because in a situation whereby you have 4 or 5 people that want to contest for the office of the president in the same coalition, is another issue entirely. The differences, the internal differences and contradictions and conflicts within those parties will become more open when the primary are coming. I hope and I pray that the coalitions, not just one coalition, the coalitions will be able to mitigate all these issues before the primary. Because during the primary, that is when I fear most that there will be more internal and external interference. And the opposition must come together, must understand the game, must have a plan, must have a strategy on how to. That is, if it's not too late in the day. Because to run for the presidency of this country, it takes a minimum of 3 years of comprehensive planning. You don't start on the eve of the election and begin to plan. All these things we foresaw that will happen. And we have been shouting 2 years back that look, this is what the federal government is likely to do. This is what the APC is likely to do. Let us prepare, let us plan, let us be ready. But it does seem nobody was listening. There was a meeting last night, and where all these things were interrogated. And we said, look, the fault, a larger percentage of the fault belongs to the leadership of the opposition, because they took a lot for granted. A lot of I's were not dotted, a lot of T's were not crossed. And then see what's happening. And then when you marginalize a section of the opposition, you invite internal rebellion. When you marginalize a certain group of people, you look at them, they are just state chairmen, they are just this. No. In politics, it doesn't happen that way. You carry everybody along, and you listen to every shade of opinion to be able to come to a total aggregate that will embrace everybody into an understanding of what the assignments are. Most of the things, both of the cases in court today would have been resolved internally. They didn't need to get to the court. But because some people were ignored, some people were neglected, some people were counted not really important. Because you see, the way we run our own opposition in this country is that if you are not a former minister, you are not a former senator, you are not a former governor, you are not a former vice president, you are not this and not that, your opinions hardly can, no matter your capacity, no matter your reach, no matter your political reach. Nobody wants to care about that. It's what is causing the issue now. Look at state chairmen are now taking up on the coalition, claiming that they were not aware, they were not this and that. Over a year ago, we said, look, all these people that are already complaining, that are already murmuring, bring everybody together, bring everybody on board, have a conversation. Let there be a united front on this matter, on this matter. For me, and then when the APC, when they were in the coalition, when they were in their own coalition, they made sure they rallied behind one presidential candidate. They rallied behind one, so that they will be able to put all their energy, all their resources, all their intellect into behind that one candidate for him to win. In the ADC today, yes, I'm not an obedient member of the obedient movement. I'm not a member of Labour. I'm not yet a member of the ADC. But for me, everybody knows that in the ADC coalition today, we know that Peter Obi stands tall above the others. But why can't people, if it's in the interest of this country, if it's in the interest of national peace, unity, and security, why can't the others suspend their own ambition and support one candidate so that they can give the APC a run for their money? Because when it comes to political strategy, give it to these APC people. They have it. Like them or hate them, the issue is that they will do what they need to do at the time they need to do it. When they were in the opposition, we have a lot to learn from them. A lot of the activities, a lot of the heights in activities post nowadays should have started long ago. Should have started how many months? Almost 2 years to the election in 2020, in 2015 was when remember the Ojota rally that the opposition have gathered people together, gathered civil society, gathered everybody together across the country to move against Jonathan. Why didn't we learn from that? Why didn't we learn from that?
Okay, comrade.
It's not as if there's lack of strategy, but because people will not listen. And it's so painful.
Okay, comrade. Now, speaking about the people, I feel when we have conversations like this, we tend to forget the masses, the electorate, who are more or less like the key and the major stakeholders in all of this. What are you feeling, this current stance of the electorate in all of this? That's number one. And oftentimes when we talk about the 2027 general election, what we hear from the opposition party is, oh, it's going to be between APC and the people. And then I wonder how that would be actualized when we don't have a solid and formidable opposition party that the people can actually fall back to.
Well, that's, in fact, you have just raised the most important issue now. That's the critical issue. The people, we, the people. And you see, Nigerians have been over-oppressed, over-repressed. You can see that poverty has been weaponized. And look at the state of insecurity across the country. For the people to be fully involved, the opposition political parties have a lot to do. You have to educate. There must be political education. There must be mass mobilization of the people at the grassroots level, outside of political party structures. You need to talk to the people at the unit level, at the ward level, at the local government level before you go to the state and national. But if you ignore all of those grassroots elements and you think you can come to the national, come on TV, go to social media and make any important impact, no, you cannot. The people, you need to talk to the people. You have to put your foot soldiers on the ground to talk one-on-one to the people. Why is it that it is the party in power that is doing that while the opposition is sleeping? So the people, have a huge responsibility in the political liberation of Nigeria, but they also need to be moved. They need to be riled. They need to be, contacted. They need to be mobilized towards a particular political opinion for the people to understand. That is why one of the responsibilities of political parties is for political education. It's not for INEC. It's not for INEC as much as it is the responsibility of political parties to educate the masses, to contact the masses. You understand? You can see even the people that one of your colleagues on Arise TV, Rufai Oseni, recently called the coalition, said a coalition of jokers. Because the guy, yes, people came after him, some people came after him, but he said coalition of jokers. But this has been one person who has been highly supportive of the opposition coalition, but he got tired of our lethargy, he got tired of our unseriousness. I had to say that on live television that, coalition of unserious people. We need to talk to the people. We need to get to the people, to the grassroots, to mobilize the people from the grassroots. And my sister, it is not a day's job. It is not a year's job. It is minimum of 2-3 years job for you to be able to mobilize the people, to get them to the threshold of understanding of how they can use their electoral power to get a new direction. As we are advocating, we need a new direction in our leadership recruitment processes, in our elections, and for people to understand that selling your vote for 5,000 naira, selling your vote for a bag of for a nodule of rice, or selling your for a nylon of salt is like you are mortgaging your future. Before you are able to convince the people to that level, you need to do a lot of grassroots mobilization, a great deal of talking to the people for minimum of 2 to 3 years for them to understand that collecting one nodule of salt or garri to vote for this person, collecting 5,000 naira is mortgaging your children's future. People cannot understand. People who are hungry cannot understand.
Okay, Comrade Mark.
To them, use them 1,000 naira that they should not vote for that person. They can't understand.
Okay, Comrade Mark.
An angry person is an angry person and a desperate person.
Absolutely. As we tend to leave the conversation here, the final question would be to the opposition parties in particular, the ADC, the Labour Party, SDP, and also the PDP. What would be your advice to them? What's the way forward amidst all of this? Because from some quarters in the ADC, we're hearing lamentations about INEC sending landmines to prevent them from fielding candidate for 2027 general election. How can they manage all of the situation?
First, let me appreciate independent television for always bringing public interest issues to the fore in your programming. You are doing very well. So thank you for supporting Nigerians. Now, well, for me, as far back as about 5 years ago, I've said that for us to have a huge impact in the elections, all the opposition political parties should come together to support one candidate. For now, I think that one we have passed that one. I don't think that one can be achieved anymore. It will have been better. But even now, in the coalition, if they can come together to support one candidate for this election, it will go a long way. And for a mass mobilization of Nigeria, it's not enough for you to say, go and join online. We have our link. We have sent our links to you. Go and join. No, it's not enough. You need to talk to people. Technology doesn't talk to people. You go and talk to people. You have your foot soldiers in every nook and cranny of the country and talk to the people to support one candidate. It is not that in the primary now, the opposition coalition, 5 presidential candidates, 10 presidential candidates will now begin to start slugging it out among themselves. It also depletes the capacity and the strength and the power of the opposition to be able to make a good electoral impact during the election. People must learn to sacrifice their ambitions for the good of the greater number of Nigerians. It's very important. The opposition must look inward. We must do an internal cleansing and do the needful before it is too late. It is too late. Nigeria needs security. Nigerians need good education. Nigerians need good healthcare. Nigerians need good infrastructures. Nigerians need peace and unity in this country. If we, in the opposition, say we have the capacity to deliver on this mandate, then we must show that, we must demonstrate that in our political parties by coming together to do the needful for the interests of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. God bless Nigeria.
Absolutely, and God bless you too, Comrade Mark Adebayor, National Spokesperson, Coalition of United Political Parties Convener, new Director for Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
I appreciate you too. Now we'll leave the conversation here, always an unending one, and we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll move over to Lagos.
Thank you very much for joining us on the program, Healthy Living. What is the kidney?
The kidney is an excretory organ in the body, which is for metabolism.
Tuberculosis affects many organs in the body, but the common ones it usually affects is the lungs.
Epilepsy is a neurological problem.
Okay.
It is an injury in the brain which causes someone to begin to convulse, to go into fits.
It is curable, but the cure is a long-term thing.
If you eat well and avoid those risk factors that will make your immunity to be down, then the risk of contracting tuberculosis will be reduced.
If you're healthy, then you're wealthy.
The Ugewe is the final ceremony of the series of festivals. It is one of peace and lightheartedness, following the more solemn of the ritual year. Ugewe is the festival of the Ewe leaves, a symbol of good luck and joy. It is the most popular of all that heralds the dawn of a Benin New Year, new vow, newness of life and freshness of life, and a new hope for the future. In the evening, the Ewe leaves are presented to the Oba of Benin in grand style in a colorful ceremony. The Ihogbe Society, amidst singing and dancing, bring the sacred leaves that symbolize good luck, blessings, peace, and prosperity. Each of the senior members of the Ihogbe proceeds to give the sacred leaves directly to the Oba of Benin, and others put theirs at his feet.
morning and welcome to the continuation of This Morning on ITV. I am Patricia Urubels. It was the late Denkin, just the elections. So we'll be looking at the ADC crisis. It has deepened as third faction emerges. What is the implication for the party? We all know that the party has been, having series of trouble, problems within them and outside them. Let's, add that they also have problems from the outside. But within them, they've been having majors and series of problems. And then now we just saw that a third faction had emerged. What is this? What will be the implication for the party? Will the party be able to put themselves together before the 2027 election? Will they be able to field, candidates, starting from the presidential candidate downwards? These are the things we're going to be looking at this morning from our Lagos Network studio. And I have with me to look at all of these, body of edit the industry newspaper.
Thank you very much, Patricia. It's nice to be here.
It's been a while. You ran. What did?
I have to find it, work hard, keep home run them, order to improve. Offside, this is going now. Lead to be relevant. I think that's what we have been doing. It's not as if I've been running away. At least I'm here today.
Thank you so much for finding time to come in the midst of your tight schedule. I know how your schedule is usually very tight. But for this topic, really, you're one person that will help us to really break it down. Is the reason why the organization decided to go after you. But anyway, let's go straight to this discussion. Let's have an overview of this crisis. Let's start with that, the current crisis within ADC and how the third faction emerged.
Well, first and foremost, lay credence to the kind of political party practice, all right? Over in America, where we borrow this of democracy from what is multi-party democracy. They've been very consistent over time. They've been, you don't see party or the and the aggressive as the peopleship were at the slightest concern. And again, you find out that the way we structure our political party in Nigeria is that they didn't place kind of action in those parties to frustrate those they think they could stand on their way in getting elected or getting re-elected, as it were. So the genesis of this is that who knew ADC? What was ADC in 2023? ADC was just a mere political party registered by INEC, and they couldn't even muster a serious, the only serious person that we knew at the ADC level in 2023 was Kachuku, which I didn't think he got up to 5,000 votes. All right? Nobody, they were not in an election. And all of a sudden, we have people moving from PDP to the ADC. All right? And without perfecting the act of that movement. All right? So when you do that, and you maybe you have, because political party has an organ from chairman to social secretary to legal advisor. When everybody is not in the boat for that to happen, there's going to be problem. And when the likes of Atiku and the rest move to APC. And we all thought they are going to register their own party. Would have been a very fantastic thing. But again, rumor has it that their party was not going to be registered in the first place. So they have to look
by
INEC.
Okay.
Then they have to look for a rule and ADC. And ADC never had any problems until they move in. So they have now become a force to be reckoned with. And that is where the problem is.
Okay, let me read through what the internet is saying. It says a fresh leadership crisis has hit the African Democratic Congress, ADC, after a fashion led by Don Norman Obina rejected the authority of groups linked to the and Bala group pledged Cyril Ramaphosa's tenure in 2022 and announced plans for a national convention and interim leadership. My problem now is do they have the time to do they have time to put themselves together and field candidates for the next coming election?
Yeah, it might be tough. I think if this court case didn't come up by Nafiu Gombe, didn't come up, because I wouldn't know, because in Nigeria today, I don't know how the judiciary look at some of these cases. I mean, I've never heard of him being the ADC in the past, the Nwosu guy that everybody knew was the chairman of, hand over the power to David Mark faction. Let me call it that way. Now this third party. Who are these third party? What was their position in ADC? Just the way of distraction is not recognized by law, because in the court has the new status quo, what is it called, Belum, the
ITV, certainly the best.
We have professors put in places these days that they are not now behaving like even secondary school students or graduate secondary school graduates who are doing better than them. So if we complain about Mahmood, all right, PDP complain about Jiga, all right, they complain about Mahmood. Now we are complaining about So what are they doing that they are not doing right? Why? My problem is that why is it that the INEC